The total amount of calories you need for the entire day from sunup to sundown is called your total daily energy need expenditure. All right, so we're going to figure out how your body uses calories. So the most calories your body needs, because it consumes the most, is your basal metabolic rate, your BMR. And that consumes about 70% of your total caloric needs. So your BMR makes your involuntary functions for you to stay alert and alive. So that would be things like all the mental energy you're thinking in your information processing. It's also things like circulating your blood and controlling your blood vessel lumen, your blood pressure, also your respiration, and other things like your hormone circulation. So those things would be part of your basal metabolic rate. We also have your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your NEAT. And this is basically any type of voluntary muscle movement that's not exercise, such as walking from your car to the building or walking around campus, and other things like your activities of daily living, such as your personal hygiene, your cooking, and whatnot. And then to wrap it up, about 5 to 10% of your total energy expenditure is part of your thermic effect of food. And what that is the total time it takes to move the food you eat through the 30 feet of your digestive system, which takes roughly about 6 to 8 hours depending on what you consume. So all that comprises your total daily energy expenditure, which is your basal metabolic rate plus your non-exercise activity time and the thermic effect of food. So let's calculate what your energy needs are. So to calculate your basal metabolic rate, what we need to do first is take your own body weight and convert that into kilograms. And how we do that is 2.2 pounds equals 1 kilogram. So I'm going to use my information as an example. If I weigh 170 pounds, I divide that by 2.2 pounds per kilogram, and I'll get 77 kilograms. Now that 77 kilograms will represent how many calories I use or need in 1 hour. So I can multiply my body weight in kilograms, which equals the amount of calories I need per hour, by 24 hours in a day, and my basal metabolic rate, which represents about 70% of my total needs, is 1,848 calories. All right, so that is my basal metabolic rate. Next, to look at my non-exercise activity time, that represents about 20% of my total energy needs. So again, I'm going to take my basal metabolic rate and I'm going to multiply that by 20%, and that will be about 370 calories. Now for the thermic effect of food, that is about 10% of my total energy needs. So I take my BMR times 10% is 185 calories. Okay, so we've calculated our total daily energy expenditure, and that is our basal metabolic rate plus our non-exercise activity thermogenesis and the thermic effect of food. So my total caloric needs were 2,403 calories. And of that, right, my basal metabolic rate was 1,848 calories. So let's break that down even further. If I look at my daily energy needs, my caloric intake, how does my body use that? By far, in a way, your brain requires the most energy. and that requires almost a quarter of your total energy. So your brain only weighs like 3 pounds, but it uses almost a quarter of your total energy needs. So for me, that's over 400 calories. The next biggest thing is my liver, and that is your metabolic processor. That converts carbs and fats and proteins to wherever they need to go. And that uses about 20% of your total energy. So again, for me, if I take 20% of my basal metabolic rate, that will give me about 370 calories. Your heart is only like a little over a pound, but that is working non-stop. That uses about 10% of your total energy needs. So right there, we're almost talking 50% of your total energy needs right there. Then we can throw in all of your other tissue, like your bones, your glands, kidneys, and they use about 14% of your energy needs. Then we can also throw in things like just maintaining your muscle mass. Your muscles use about 20% of your total energy. And the very least is fat. Fat only uses about 4% of your total energy. So if I look at my basal metabolic rate, I need at least 1,848 calories to function, because all that energy is going to be dispersed among these high demand calorie eaters in my body. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more of the importance of eating at least your basal metabolic rate, and more towards your total daily energy expenditure. All right, so we want our total daily energy expenditure, which is basically the amount of calories the amount of calories we use. And ideally, we want that to match the amount of calories coming in. And where do we get our calories that come in? Ideally, we want to get from the foods we eat, which is our diet. So our diet is comprised of all the foods we eat, in particular group of macronutrients called carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are made up of green leafy vegetables, some fruits, grains. And then we also have our fats. And fats comprise of things like dairy, meats, and oils. And then we also have protein. And protein is things such as fish, meat, dairy. Also, we have nuts, beans, seeds, which are called legumes, as well as grains. So again, this equals our diet, and that should equal our total daily energy expenditure, which in our case, our total daily energy expenditure we calculated was 2,403 calories. So ideally, that is going to match this. So let's calculate where our total amounts of carbs, fats, and proteins should come from. All right, in total, about half, about 45 to 65% of our total diet should be from carbohydrates. And if you look, carbohydrates are pretty much all plant sources. All right, one caveat here is why do we need so many carbs? Is because carbohydrates in the form of glucose is the primary source of energy our body likes to use, especially for activities or movement. And our body can't store a whole lot of carbohydrates, therefore we need that consumed in our body. However, if you look at these things are high in complex carbohydrates, and only about 10% of our total carbohydrates should really be from added sugars, so not very much. So let's get a breakdown of our carbohydrates. Like we said, about 45 to 65% of our total calories should come from carbs. Or if we look at your body weight, about 5 grams per kilograms is needed. Now, if you're like an endurance athlete, you may need upwards to 10 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight. So how can we figure this out, right? So I've already determined my total daily energy needs were 2,403 calories. And if I need about 45 to 65% of my total calories should come from carbs, I just put that right in the middle at 50%. So that would equal about 1,200 calories should come from carbs. And now I know that 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories.
Oh, wow.
So what I can do is take the total amount of calories I need, divide that by 4, and I'll get about 300 grams. And just to calculate here, if I take my body weight in kilograms and I multiply that by 5 grams here, of 5 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight, I get about 385 grams of carbohydrates. So for me, percent of my calories should come from carbs, which is about 1,200 calories or 300 grams. About 25 to 30% of my total diet should come from fats. Again, we primarily get those from meat and dairy and various oils. So if I look at my fats, right, about 25 to 30% of my total caloric intake should come from fats, or about 0.5 to 1.5 grams of fat per kilogram of body weight. So again, if my total daily caloric need is 2,403 calories, I multiply that by, let's say, 30%, and I get 721 calories of fat. Now I know that 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories.
Oh, wow.
So I can just divide how many grams I need by 9 calories per gram, and I need about 80 grams of fat. So again, using this formula up here, if I take just 1 gram per kilogram of body weight and I weigh 77 kilograms, I need about 77 grams of fat. Okay, so that's about how much fat I need in my diet. Look at protein. I need about 10 to 15% of my total calories should come from protein. Again, the best source of that is really fish. We do get a bunch from meats, dairy, as well as plant sources like legumes and grains. So if I look at my protein needs, again, I need about 10 to 15% of my total calories should come from proteins, or about 0.7 to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. And if you're not very active, you may need at the lower end, and if you're an athlete or very physically active, you may need at the higher end of that range. So again, I take my total daily energy expenditure, and I just multiply that maybe by 15%, and I need about 360 grams of protein. Just like carbs, 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories.
Oh, wow.
So I can divide the total amount of calories I need, divide that by 4 calories per gram, and I need about 90 grams of protein. So again, if I take my body weight in kilograms, multiply that by about 1.2 grams per kilogram, and I get 92 grams. All right. This comprises my diet. My diet is my carbs, fats, and proteins. So if I need 2,403 calories, about 1,200 should come from carbohydrates, about 720 should come from fats, and about 360 calories should come from proteins. And ideally, we want those calories coming in should match my total calories going out. Right here. All right. So that is basically a summary of how much energy your body needs and where that energy should come from. All right, finally, let's look at how much energy we use during exercise. So we know the energy my body expends in a day at rest is my basal metabolic rate, plus my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that's just activities of daily living, and my thermic effect of food, which is about 2,400 calories for myself. So first, let's look at how many calories we need at rest per minute. So again, if I need to convert my body weight into kilograms, and to do that, right, 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. So if I weigh 170 pounds, I divide that by 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So I weigh about 77 kilograms. And what we determined earlier is that 77 kilograms, my body weight in kilograms, equals about how many calories I need or I expend at rest per hour. So that's how we figured out our basal metabolic rate, was we multiplied this calories per hour times 24 hours in one day. Now what I can do is I can divide this by 60 minutes per hour. So if I take my body weight in kilograms, it represents the calories per hour I need, divide by 60 minutes per hour, I need about 1.3 calories per minute at rest. And now what that is equivalent to is a MET, 1 MET. A MET is equivalent of a task. So if the task here is rest, so this is the amount of energy I use at rest. So 1 MET equals 1.3 calories per minute based upon my body weight in kilograms. Another option you might see is if you Google calculating a MET, is you take 3.5 times your body weight in kilograms divided by 200. And that's about the same. So either way you do it is right, but basically a metabolic equivalent is the amount of energy you use at rest. So now we can use that as a multiplier. So 1 MET, again, is about the amount of energy I use at rest. So that would be things like I'm awake, I might be sitting at my computer checking emails or whatever, grading, or reading, just really not doing much. Now if I get up and walk around, or if I give a presentation or teach a class, or just doing some activities of daily living, that could be about 3 times the amount of energy I use at rest. So that would be 3 METs. If we keep going, like 5 METs is we start to break a sweat, and that is most like recreational types of activities, where we're moving hard, we're breaking a sweat, we're breathing heavier, our heart rate goes up. That is up to about 5 METs. And if we keep going, 8 to 12 to even up to 20 METs would be pretty vigorous activity. That'd be like running, sprinting, lifting to your max. So you're really winded. You can't have a conversation at this level of energy expenditure. So now we kind of get an idea of what a MET is, what the intensity levels are. We can take the METs of the activity times how long, or the duration of the activity, times how many calories you burn per minute. So again, at rest, 1 MET, if I'm resting for 30 minutes, for myself, a 77 kilogram person, I burn 1.3 calories per minute. So a half an hour of rest, I use about 39 calories. If I go for a 30-minute walk, just at an easy pace, I'm not really pushing my pace, it's very comfortable, I can burn about 117 calories in that half an hour. Now if I go for a bike ride, or if I play tennis for 30 minutes, that's about 5 minutes, and I can burn close to 200 calories doing that. And if I go for a run, and I'm pushing about 8 minutes, again this is about 8 times the amount of energy I expend at rest. If I do that for 30 minutes, I can burn over 300 calories doing that. So the goal, right, is to accumulate 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity throughout the week. So we're going to be doing about 30 minutes of 3 to 5 MET activity 5 days a week. If you do more intense activities, maybe you only do about 75 minutes per week. But what I can do then is I can figure out now I'm burning these extra calories through exercise and activity. So now I've got I know this is about how much energy I need throughout the day. That's my total daily energy expenditure. So I know that was about 2,400 calories. Now if I exercise, I can add now this to the puzzle. So if I go for a 30-minute run this morning, I burn about 312 calories. That is a neat piece of the pie. So now I can add that right to this. So now my total daily caloric expenditure is my basal metabolic rate plus my non-exercise activity thermogenesis plus my thermic effect of food. And now I can add my exercise, which may be down here, which would now be about 2,700 calories. So my total energy expenditure should ideally equal how much energy I take in. And again, we looked at how many carbs, fats, and proteins our body needs. But a lot of questions I get is like, why do I need so many carbs? I thought carbs were bad. But again, if you remember where we get our carbs from, are plant sources. The negative carbs we tend to think about are the refined, processed carbs that give us quick, short-term energy. So rule of thumb I say is if you have to open up 2 packages to get to your carb, it's probably not a quality carb. So if you'll open a box and a package within that box, it's been refined for shelf stability. Another reason why we need so many carbs is because our body cannot store that many carbs. So my body can really only store about 1% of my body weight in carbohydrates. And most of it's locked up in your muscles as glycogen, and that's only local. So if I'm running and my glycogen stores in my quads start to get depleted, I can't recruit any from my upper body. Only my liver will be able to make available more glycogen, more blood sugar available. So really we only have about 1,600 calories of glucose available in our body for energy as carbohydrates. Again, that's your primary energy source for your muscles, for your liver, for your brain, pretty much every organ in your body except for your heart. So we have, a good, if you look at how many calories we burn here, that's a good 4 to 6 hours of activity stored in our glycogen. And that's going to be, again, our primary source during activity is going to be our carbohydrates. Then, depending on your body composition, you may have, if you're really slim and an athlete, you may have about 15 to 20%, depends on if you're male or female. Or if you're a little overweight, you might have upwards to 30% body fat. But just free-flowing, kind of available in your blood, you have about 2,500 calories available in your body, in your blood for energy. And you have an additional 80,000 plus energy stored throughout your body in adipose tissue. So you have pretty much really almost an endless supply of energy in your fat. And then about 74%, again, depending on your body fat composition, most of your body is going to be made up of proteins. And again, that's not necessarily only muscle, but that's all of your tissue. That's like your bones, your organs, even your enzymes and hormones are made up of different proteins. So proteins are not really your primary source of energy. They're useful for building, maintaining, and repairing your tissue. I think if you want to lose weight, you just take in fewer calories than you expend, and you'll lose weight. And that is correct to some degree, but more is not better, right? Ideally, you want to cut about maybe 250 calories from your diet, from more of those from more of those simple sugars. And then we want to maybe increase our physical activity by about 250 calories, okay? So depending on your duration or the intensity, we can expend an additional amount of energy through exercise. However, the problem comes in is when we cut our dietary intake really below what our basal metabolic needs are. So we normally get our energy from carbs, fats, and proteins from our diet. But what happens is if we're not getting enough energy through our diet, our body will now start to break down its own tissue. And most people think, well, that's great, I want to burn fat, right? But if you remember, fat only uses about 4% of your basal metabolic rate. So it doesn't really it doesn't cost your body much to keep that fat around. And if your caloric intake is limited, it's advantageous to keep this energy available. So when we restrict calories, we don't actually burn fat. We actually kind of preserve fat because it doesn't really cost much and it's very energy dense. And if we look at muscle uses about 20% of your basal metabolic rate. So your muscle is actually pretty expensive to keep around. So again, for me, my muscles are going to burn about 370 calories at rest, versus my fat only burns about 74 calories at rest. So if I'm not getting enough energy from my food, it makes more sense for my body to cut lean tissue that's metabolically expensive and preserve my fat tissue. So if I lose weight from a caloric restricted diet, I'm mostly going to be losing this expensive lean tissue. So again, the scale really doesn't tell you if you're gaining or losing weight very well, because if I start to exercise, that's an anabolic activity. It builds tissue, and I might gain 2 pounds of muscle, but I could also lose maybe a pound of fat. So really, I've changed my body composition by 3 pounds, 2 pounds of muscle, and lost 1 pound of fat. But the scale will tell me I've gained 1 pound. Likewise, if I go on a diet, caloric restricted diet, I could lose muscle mass while preserving fat mass. So the scale might say I lost 3 pounds, but it's a metabolically active lean tissue that I actually want on my body. So the takeaway here is, if you really want to lose weight, you can't really necessarily do it by diet alone. And if we look at exercise, we're not burning a whole lot of extra energy through exercise as well. So if you do diet or just exercise, it's going to be pretty challenging. So the idea is to trim a few extra of those surplus calories, primarily from those simple carbs, and then increase our physical activity so we have a slight caloric deficit to eventually lose, hopefully, some body weight.